Tell you something I've realized after coaching quite a few leaders at this point, and that is that most leaders think that they might be dealing with a communication problem or an accountability problem or even a culture problem, or better yet, and sometimes even worse, a performance problem. But guess what? That's not the real problem. Those are just symptoms. After years of coaching leaders, one thing that has become incredibly clear to me is that the leadership challenge I encounter can be traced back to one root issue. Leaders have never been taught how to balance empathy and accountability at the same time. So they lean too far one way or too far another way. And then when that balance is missing, there are some predictable gaps that start to show up. Trust breaks down, communication becomes unclear, accountability feels uncomfortable, and then people stop taking ownership because things are inconsistent. The culture, performance, and that's ultimately a balanced leadership problem. And while learning to balance people and performance might be the leadership skill that nobody ever taught you, but the one leadership skill that every single leader needs.
Leadership isn't about choosing between people and performance. It's about mastering both. Welcome to Leadership in Real Life. I'm H-Monét, and every week I'll give you practical strategies to help you lead with confidence, clarity, and impact. Now let's get into it.
Now today's episode is a little different because I want to share something that has completely changed the way that I've coached leaders the last few years. For a few years earlier in my school leadership journey and even in my consulting journey, I've been hired because people believe that they had a specific problem, right? Like communication or accountability or a culture problem. Or maybe in my strategy connection calls, people told me, why people just aren't taking ownership in their work. They don't have motivation. They don't take initiative. Or maybe the CEOs were struggling because they feel like their mid-level leaders weren't coaching or developing their teams, or they felt like morale was low, or there was this lack of trust in leadership and overall performance wasn't where it needed to be. And every time I heard those specific challenges, I found myself asking myself, what's beneath all of that? What's really the root cause of this problem? Because one thing I've learned over the years is that leadership is a lot like going to the doctor, right? You don't walk into the doctor's office and say, fix my fever, because fever is never the problem. The fever is your body's way of telling you that something else is going on. Leadership works the same way. Poor communication isn't usually the problem. Low trust isn't usually the problem. Poor accountability, not the problem. High turnover, that's a problem, but that's not the root cause of the problem. Those are symptoms, and the symptoms always point to something deeper. And so after years of experience coaching, whether it was assistant principals, directors, program directors, department leaders, whatever the case may be, I kept noticing the same pattern. No matter what industry I was supporting, no matter how experienced the leader was, the same leadership challenges kept showing up. Trust, communication, accountability, ownership, coaching, culture, performance, different organizations, different people, same problem. And so one day it finally clicked, right? I don't think these are separate leadership problems. They're separate symptoms, but not separate problems. They're all connected. And the one root issue that's driving these problems is that leaders have never been taught how to consistently balance empathy and accountability in their leadership. Most of us were promoted because we were good at our jobs. Not because someone taught us how to lead people or because we were good at leading people. So we become leaders without the experience and knowledge of knowing how to effectively lead people. And so what happens is we start to naturally fall into one end of the spectrum. If we lean too much towards empathy, we avoid conflict. We give too many second chances. We don't want to disappoint people. If we naturally lean towards accountability, we're driven by results. We move fast, set high expectations, probably give minimal support. We expect excellence without there being any mistakes. And neither empathy or accountability is wrong. Empathy is not the problem. Accountability is not the problem. The problem is what happens when we consistently lean too far in one direction. Because effective leadership isn't about choosing one, it's about doing both. It's about knowing how to protect both. That's what balanced leadership is all about. Not choosing just empathy, not choosing just accountability. It's learning how to lead with both. Because when that balance is missing, predictable leadership gaps begin to emerge. And once I started seeing those gaps, I couldn't unsee them. Now I see them in almost every leadership challenge that I encounter when supporting other leaders. And so over the next few minutes, I want to show you exactly what I mean, because I have a feeling you're going to start seeing them too. So let's talk about what happens when that balance is missing. Because I don't think leaders wake up one morning and decide, you know what, today I'm just going to create confusion. I'm going to cause chaos. Or today I'm going to wake up, I feel like destroying trust. That doesn't happen. That does not happen. That's not how leadership works. Most leadership problems aren't intentional. They're predictable though. They're the predictable outcome of leaning too far in one direction for too long. So here's what I mean. Imagine a line, and on one side you have empathy. On the other side, you have accountability. Now, both are necessary. Both matter. The problem isn't empathy. The problem isn't accountability. The problem is living at one extreme. So let's start with empathy. I love empathetic leaders. I'm one myself. Empathy is what allows us to connect with people, to understand their experiences, to build relationships, to create psychological safety. Empathy is one of our greatest leadership strengths when we use it right. But what I've learned is that when empathy isn't balanced with accountability, it can actually cause a lot of harm and become a leadership liability. I want you to think about it. If you avoid the difficult conversation because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, you keep giving extensions because you know they're going through a difficult season, or you lower expectations because you don't want people to feel overwhelmed. You rescue people instead of coaching them because it's faster and you just want to get it done and you want them to succeed. So you tell yourself, I'm helping them. But over time, the standards start to lower and slip. And people become dependent on you, and the expectations become unclear, and the ownership doesn't exist. And so eventually you find yourself carrying the weight of everyone else's work. And it's not because your team isn't capable, but because your leadership is unintentionally taught them that they don't have to be. That's a problem. Now let's walk to the other side of the line, accountability. And I love accountability too. Because high expectations matter, results matter, excellence matter, your feedback matters, clear standards matters. But when accountability isn't balanced with empathy, leaders begin making a different set of mistakes. They become transactional. Everything is about performance. They move so quickly towards correction that they stop asking questions and remaining curious. Conversations become one way. People comply, but they don't contribute at all. The meetings are quiet. Innovation is pretty much non-existent. And then fear starts to replace that trust. And people stop bringing you problems because there are some, but they don't feel safe bringing them to you. And they try to avoid becoming the next problem, right? And so I've observed that both leaders genuinely care about their teams. Whether you're empathy mostly or accountability mostly, they care about their teams. Accountability-focused leaders care. Empathy-focused leaders care. They simply express that care differently. One protects people from discomfort, while the other pushes people towards performance. But neither extreme creates sustainable leadership, because leadership isn't supposed to live at the extremes. It lives in the balance. That's where the trust grows. That's where people feel supported and challenged. That's where expectations are clear and your relationships grow strong and they remain strong. And that's where people know my leader cares about me and my leader believes I'm capable of more. And that's the sweet spot that we should be after. That's balanced leadership, not soft leadership, not hard leadership, but balanced leadership. Because when that balance is missing, that's when those predictable gaps start to show up. And I call those gaps leadership effectiveness gaps. And once I started identifying those gaps, I realized that every organization has them. The only difference is which ones are showing up the loudest. So let me show you what those gaps actually look like. I call these leadership effectiveness gaps. Why? Because every leadership challenge I encounter can usually be traced back to one of these predictable gaps. And what's interesting is that most organizations spend all their time trying to fix the symptom. They'll say, we need communication training. Call Hyla. Or we need an accountability system. I think Hyla has one. Call her. Or we need a culture initiative. Go call Hyla because she could do culture. And those things absolutely have value, right? And trust me, call me, right? But if you don't address what's creating the gap in the first place, you'll keep solving the same problems over and over and over again. So let's start with the first one, the trust gap. This one shows up all the time. If you lean too far into empathy, you start avoiding difficult conversations because you don't want to damage relationships. You tell yourself, I'll wait until next week, or maybe it'll get better, or I don't want to discourage them, so let's just see what happens, right? And the issue doesn't go away. And so now the expectations become inconsistent. And best believe your team notices it. People begin wondering, when is this problem going to get addressed? Why is nobody seeing this? Is anybody seeing this? And so little by little, that starts to erode the trust. So now let's swing all the way over to the other side with too much accountability. And then you have every conversation that's about performance. Everything feels corrective. People feel managed and not led or developed. And they become afraid to make mistakes, afraid to ask questions, afraid to speak honestly. And the result, false harmony and a lack of trust. Trust gets broken. And so you have different behaviors, right, with two leaders, but you have the same outcome. And that's what I want you to notice. Both extremes damage trust. Balanced leadership, though, helps you to create something different. You create trust because you're both supportive and consistent. You don't avoid the conversation and you don't weaponize accountability. You tell the truth with care. That's balanced leadership. Now, let's look at another gap, the communication gap. And I see this one every single week, right? Every single week in some way, shape, or form. You have leaders that lean too far into empathy, and so they start to sugarcoat their feedback. They soften it, they become vague, they beat around the bush, like my mom used to say. And they assume that people are gonna understand what they meant. And so they avoid saying the hard thing directly because they don't want anyone to feel bad. And that leaves everyone in the conversation feeling good, but unclear. That's a problem. Now, the other extreme is too much accountability. And in those conversations, it's blunt, it's one way, it's transactional. The leader talks, everybody else listens. There's very little curiosity, very little listening, very little dialogue, just correction after correction after correction. Not effective. Balanced leaders can communicate differently because they set clear expectations, but they deliver those expectations with care. They ask questions. They listen before they respond. They make sure that people leave with a shared understanding, not mixed messages. That's what healthy communication looks like. Let's talk about the one gap that organizations usually notice first, and that's the accountability gap. And this is the one that gets everyone's attention, gets everybody riled up because it's measurable. And if you lean too far into empathy, excuses slowly become acceptable. Standards begin to slip. Underperformance continues because you keep giving chance after chance after chance. And it's not because you don't care about results or you don't care that the organization grows. You care about the people a little bit too much. And then if you swing too far over to the other side in accountability, then everything becomes about micromanagement. It's fear-based compliance, perfectionism, blame. People perform because they're afraid, not because they're committed. And so the problem with fear is that fear can produce short-term performance, but it is almost never sustainable performance. And with balanced leadership, you don't create that dependence. You create ownership. You don't lower the expectations. You don't lead people through fear. You coach people, you support people, and you hold people accountable to a clear standard. That's the difference. Now, if you've been listening closely so far, you've probably noticed that trust, communication, accountability, those aren't isolated leadership problems, but they're all revealing the same exact thing. They're showing us that balance has been lost. They're showing us where that balance has been lost too. And we're just getting started because there are several more leadership effectiveness gaps that quietly show up in organizations every single day. And once you learn to recognize them, then you'll never look at leadership the same way again. So here's where this framework gets really interesting, because these leadership effectiveness gaps don't exist in isolation. They build on one another. Think about it. If trust begins to erode, communication starts breaking. When communication breaks down, accountability becomes inconsistent. And when accountability becomes inconsistent, people stop taking ownership. And when people stop taking ownership, leaders start rescuing instead of coaching and developing. And before you know it, you got a mess on your hands. And you've created a culture where you're carrying the weight of everyone else's work. And it's not because you have bad people or ineffective people. It's not because your team doesn't have any potential, but because your leadership system has become out of balance. So let's take a few more looks at these gaps, and let's continue with the coaching gap. And this one is huge, because when leaders lean too far into empathy, they become rescuers. They think, it's just faster if I do it myself. I'll fix it this time. I'll rewrite the email. I'll give the communication. I'll jump in the meeting and take over, facilitate. I'll solve the problem. And while all that feels helpful in the moment, it quietly teaches your team that they don't have to figure this out, because you're going to come and do it. Now, if you swing all the way over to the other side in accountability, you got leaders that say things like, you should have already known this, or you go figure it out, or I don't have time to coach you, go figure it out. And in either extreme, people are not developed. And that's the problem. Balanced leaders ask a different question. How can I help you grow while still expecting excellence? And that's coaching. That's not rescuing. We're not abandoning. We're developing people, because your job as a leader isn't to be the smartest person in the room. It's to build more smart people in the room with you. Think about that. Now let's talk about the clarity gap. And oh my goodness, this one shows up in pretty much every organization that I've worked with. You have empathetic leaders who assume people understand. They think, oh, we talked about it in the meeting. Everybody knows what we're doing. We're all on the same page. That same page don't have anybody on it. There's assumptions, confusion. But then when you go to the other extreme of the accountability-driven leaders, they tend to overwhelm people with information. It's directives after directives, emails after emails. You got checklists, you got meetings for the meetings, you got reminders about the meetings. But all that information is not the same as having clarity. Balanced leaders slow down long enough to create a shared understanding. They don't assume, they verify, they ask, can you tell me what you heard? Who can summarize what we talked about today, right? That's a good one to ask. Asking people if they have questions. Asking people what success looks like on a project from their point of view. That is proof that you've explained it well. That clarity is about how well we understood it together. And that's important. And then the last gap is the ownership gap. And this one is very important too, because when you have empathy that goes unchecked, that's when the teams become dependent. They wait for permission. They wait for direction from you. And they wait for the leader to make every single decision. You hear things like, well, what do you want me to do? Or can you just tell me? Or I'll wait until you look at it first. You don't need that in your life as a leader. But then you swing over to the other side of accountability. You have people that are detached and they'll do the minimum. They protect themselves. They stop taking initiative because every decision feels risky and they don't feel safe to take that risk. But in balanced leadership, you build ownership. You don't create dependence. You don't create disengagement. You create confidence. You create environments where people know I'm trusted to think. I'm trusted to do my job. I'm trusted and expected to contribute. And if I do make a mistake, I'm going to be supported. And that can change everything within your organization. That ownership isn't something that leaders demand. It's something that leaders have to develop. And every one of these gaps point us back to the same question. Where have I lost the balance? Not how do I fix the employee? Not how do I make my team work harder? But Where has my leadership drifted too far towards empathy or too far towards accountability? Because when you get the answer to that question, you'll stop chasing the symptoms. You'll finally start solving the real problem. So let's bring this all together. Today we talked about trust, communication, accountability, coaching, clarity, ownership. And if we kept going, we continue talking about culture, decision-making, leadership sustainability, and ultimately the overall organizational performance. But what I hope you don't miss out of this episode is that those aren't 10 separate leadership problems. They're 10 predictable leadership gaps. And those gaps usually point back to one root issue, the leadership balance problem. When leaders haven't learned how to consistently balance empathy and accountability, they unintentionally create gaps. The trust begins to erode, communication becomes inconsistent, people stop taking ownership, coaching turns into rescuing or micromanaging, culture is a mess and confusing, and decisions become either people-pleasing or people ignoring. You're going to burn yourself out trying to carry everyone else. Teams are going to burn out trying to keep up with you. And eventually the entire organization begins to feel the effects of this ineffectiveness. Performance drops, engagement drops, retention drops, morale drops, and people, it's not that they don't stop caring, but when that balance was lost, they get lost. And so what I need every leader listening to hear is that leadership isn't supposed to feel hard. That doesn't mean leadership is easy, because it is not. But leadership will require courage always. It will require difficult conversations always. It will require tough decisions always. But constantly feeling like you're being pulled in 85 different directions. Do I protect the relationship? Do I protect the standard? Do I give more grace? Do I put my foot down and hold the line? That constant tension isn't a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that nobody ever taught you how to balance both empathy and accountability. And that's why I'm so passionate about this work. I'm writing a whole dissertation on it because I don't believe leaders need another motivational quote. I don't believe organizations need all these workshops, although I will come and lead one for you. I believe leaders need a practical framework that helps them recognize where the balance has been lost so you can intentionally restore that balance. And that's what balanced leadership is. It's not choosing between people and performance. It's not recognizing that people and performance were never meant to compete with one another. In fact, the healthiest organizations understand that people drive performance. So you need both. A strong performance creates opportunities for people. The two have always belonged together. That's why I call these leadership effectiveness gaps. And we got to close them. Let y'all in on a little secret. Every time I walk into an organization, I'm looking for the gaps. But it's not to criticize, it's not to judge, but to identify where leadership has drifted out of balance and to help leaders close the gaps, right? That's what you hired me for. Because once you know what you're looking for, that changes everything. It changes the questions that you ask, right? You stop asking, why will my team communicate? And you start asking, what about my leadership experience makes communication difficult? You stop asking, why doesn't my team take ownership? And you start asking, how have I unintentionally created dependence? You stop asking, why is culture struggling? And you start asking, where has consistency been lost? And those are completely different questions. And different questions create different leaders. And so here's my challenge for you, because I always have one. This week, don't try to fix all 10 gaps. I want you to just identify one. And I want you to ask yourself, where is my greatest leadership effectiveness gap right now? Is it trust, communication, accountability, coaching, ownership, culture, sustainability? Where have you drifted too far forward towards empathy or too far forward towards accountability? Because that awareness is where that transformation begins. You can't balance what you haven't identified. And once you identify it, you can begin intentionally closing it. And so if today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to help you take the first step. First, I want you to message me Reset, because I'm going to send you three things. My Balanced Leadership Clarity Guide, my weekly wrap-up routine, and my Leadership Effectiveness Gap Assessment. These are my favorite resources to help leaders identify where balance has been lost and to start leading with greater clarity, consistency, and confidence. And if you're a school district, a nonprofit, or a higher education institution, or an organization that's ready to strengthen the way your leaders lead, I'd love to partner with you. So hit me up. This work isn't about creating perfect leaders. It's about creating leaders who know how to balance empathy and accountability in a way that builds trust, develops people, and drives meaningful results. If this episode challenged your thinking, great. Share it with another leader, because I truly believe the more leaders who learn to lead with balance, the healthier our teams become, the stronger our organizations become, and ultimately, the more lives that we impact. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me. I love that you're listening. And if you're enjoying these leadership and real life moments, don't forget to subscribe to Balanced Leadership with H-Monét. That's me. So you never miss an episode. And until next time, remember, the best leaders do not choose between people and performance. They know how to lead and protect both. Lead with empathy, lead with accountability, and let's keep building the kind of leadership that changes people before it changes performance. I'll see you the next week. Peace.